Welcome back, Life Sciences, from your wee break. I hope, as I said, you always need to stretch, get up, do some movement, get the blood flowing, go and have a drink of water or something, just so that the brain is nice and fresh. Just to recap on what we're looking at, remember we're looking at the kingdom protists. And they're the very odd kingdom where we're going to see both plant and animal-like protists. Right, the animal ones are called protozoans, and we paid specific attention to a parasitic plasmodium that causes malaria. Or we can have on the other side, we can have the more plant-like ones, and we call that algae. Guys, when it comes to questions on this section, yes, quite maybe you are asked to identify, maybe an algae or a protozoa, but very often the questions are related to malaria. Okay, very often they are database questions. You have to read from graphs, you have to read from tables, right? And that's sometimes quite nice to do because the answers are usually there. You just need to make sure that you are quite accurate. You read your questions carefully, right? And you follow, right? If you're given graphs, etc., that you follow with the ruler and you use everything. You're very accurate and you pay attention to it. Okay, so let's just have a look at one or two questions that could be asked on this section, right? And as I said to you, most of them are going to be concentrated on the disease, right, that the plasmodium causes, which is going to be malaria. All right, guys, our first question is a little extract that we're giving you. So first of all, be very careful when you get things like this. Don't speed through it. Spend time, all right, read, see what it says. Don't miss the information. So it says that you must read the extract, and then underneath that there's a temperature chart. Oh, we're going to go back. There's a temperature chart, and that temperature chart, all right, is going to give us the information. So this, all right, all about a patient that is suffering from malaria. So let's read the question. The malaria parasite, all right, is caused by a unicellular organism called a plasmodium. Okay, the parasite is transferred to humans by the Anopheles mosquito, and malaria symptoms only appear after 10 days when the first fever attack occurs. Now there's a little bit of information over there. It tells you that it's a unicellular plasmodium, right, which tells you it's from the protist kingdom. It tells you that it's, all right, transferred by the Anopheles mosquito, and probably the most important bit of information is that once, all right, malaria symptoms only appear 10 days after the first fever attack. So let's have a look what the chart looks like. Right, so if we have a look at the chart over here, right, what is it showing us? It's showing us on our x-axis the time, as you can see the days, and it's showing us on our y-axis our temperature. All right, so here we've got body temperature and here we've got time of days. The first question is, to which group of microorganisms does plasmodium belong? Guys, a nice simple warm-up question. And which group? Remember, which kingdom? So we know that it is the Protista. As I said to you, it tells you plasmodium, and you need to know which kingdom it belongs to. Nice and easy first question. Next question. Name one tissue in the body that the malaria parasite attacks. Right, we know that it attacks two tissues, so obviously we would accept any of those. The one that it's going to do, right, is going to be blood, specifically the red blood cells. All right, that's going to be your first answer. And the second one, where was it that the malaria, all right, plasmodium went? The first thing that it entered into the body is the liver. Right, so the first two answers, well, the first two questions are study questions. We didn't necessarily give you that information, so you need to be able to know, right, certain characteristics of your disease. Okay, now we're going to use the chart because it says there from the chart. So you need to go to the chart to get the answer. And the first question is the highest temperature this patient experienced during the time period. So if we go to our graph, and this is where you use your ruler, guys. You're looking at temperature and you put your ruler down, right? And you make sure, because if you have a look here, if I draw a line over here, let me go over there, and I draw it, I know I'm not too accurate, all the way across, right there, you're going to see that if you draw a line, where is the highest peak? And if you have a look over there, if you draw your line nicely and straight, a little bit better than me, all right, you will notice, let's go back to the question. We're going to double check the question. Okay, we're just double checking what we have to look at, and we're looking for the highest temperature this patient experienced. So if I go back over here, all right, and I'm going to draw my line to approximately over here. So you've got to make sure, now look guys, it's between 40 and 41. That is your temperature. So you're going to probably put it in decimals. So your answer is definitely going to be 40. It cannot be 41 because that is not where it's reached, comma. And if you have a look at your line, it's probably round about over there. It's not halfway in between, so you've got to judge. Now, if you use your ruler and be much more accurate than me, you're approximately, if I look, it's probably around about 40,3. You are not finished yet because 40,3 means absolutely nothing. When we talk about temperature, temperature has got units, so your answer must be 40,3 degrees Celsius. Do you see how it is when you're looking at over there? You've got to use your logic, right? You need to use your judgment and figure out approximately where it is going to be. Okay, so that was our first one, was the temperature. The next question was the number of fever attacks the patient experienced during the 5 days. And what is a fever attack? A fever attack is when our temperature rises above body temperature. So we're looking for spikes in the temperature, and we want to see how many spikes there are. So if we have a look, all right, at our graph, we have one spike over here, then our temperature goes down again. We have another spike over here, and then our temperature goes down again, and we have a third spike over there. All right, so if we were to answer our question, the number of fever attacks would just be 3. That's all we have to put, no units of measurement, because we're not looking at anything else. Now, the next question says, calculate on which day the patient could expect the start of the next fever attack. All right. In other words, do you see a pattern? So, we had a fever on day 11. We had a fever on day 13. And we had a fever on day 15. So if you look at the pattern, we have a fever every second day. So we've got 11, 13, 15, which means that the next fever attack is probably going to occur on the 17th day. Right, so calculate on which day it's going to be the 17th day. As you can see, all right, it happened, the fever spiked every second day. Nice and easy, all right, reading from the graph. All right, now let's have a look at the next question. And it says, suggest 3 ways. And remember where it says 3 ways, the marker is only going to mark the first 3 of preventing malaria. Now, if we think back, we close our eyes and we think of the slide. The first slide was spraying. All right. And we use in our country, we use DDT, or we use, all right, insecticides. Right, there we go. Another way we can use, right, is nets. And those mosquito nets, all right, have been sprayed with insecticides, so it kills the mosquitoes, right? Also, it prevents the mosquitoes from biting us, right? Which leads us to the next question, right? We can prevent the mosquito from biting, and we can use, all right, medicine. If it does bite, we can use, all right, mosquito repellent, right, anything to get the mosquito away. Right, so when we're looking at the concept here, what else could we use? We could have long sleeve clothes, all right, long sleeves, or we can wear long pants, right. Any three ways in which we can see that either we're going to kill the mosquito, right, or we're going to prevent the mosquito from biting us. So spraying with insecticide, the insecticide nets, right, wearing long sleeves or shirts or long pants so it stops, taking medicines to stop it from, right, invading our body, putting creams on, spraying in our room, all of those things, right, to be able to get rid of the mosquitoes. All right, guys, let's have a look at the next question. And as we start to read, it says, study the graph. So, oh, yummy. So maybe all the information is there for us, which shows the number of malaria cases. So we're looking at data again, and it's in the Limpopo province here in South Africa, which we know, right, is an area that is very nice and ideal conditions, all right, for mosquitoes. And we're looking at three particular years. Now, I want you to go to this graph that we have. Be very, very careful because we have 3 line graphs. And because we have 3 line graphs, it might look very confusing, but you must make sure when you read from the graph, you have the correct line. Okay, guys, so now we're going to look at the first question. And the first question asked us, in which month? So that's important. So we need to know a month, January, February, March, April, etc. And they've given us a year, 1999 to 2000. Right. And what do we have to get? The highest number of malaria cases. So if we have a look at the graph, the first thing we have to do is we need to look at the 1999 to 2000. Those are the big, thick, dotted lines. We must go to the highest number of cases. So that's the peak of the graph. So that's going to be over here. And we take our ruler and we draw a line all the way down to the bottom. And it's going to give us, all right, a month. And that is going to be November. So if we go back to our question, which month had the highest one? Right, your answer is then going to be November. All right, good. Let's go to our next question. The next question says, how many cases, right? So how many malaria cases were reported in the month of March? Okay, so we're looking at the cases. We're looking in March in 2000 to 2001. So let's go to our graph, right? First of all, we're going to look at 2000, 2001, small little dotted lines, right? We're going to the month of March. So we're going to the month of March, okay, and we go to March and we go up the one line, right? and then we go across to the other line because it wants to know the number of cases. So we read up to the dotted line over there, and then we go to the y-axis, and there we get the total of 500 cases. So if we look at how many cases were reported, right, it was 500. Read from your graph. It was backwards this time. All right. And our last question on this graph, it says, explain how an increase in the number of malaria infections could affect the South African economy. Guys, and this is what I say to you. This is the management. How can it affect us? Right, let's think economy. What does economy mean? Economy means money. So how is it going to affect us? So if people are sick, right, they're not working. So if they're not working, all right, what are they doing? They're not making money. What else? People have to go to the doctor if they are sick. So they're going to go to the hospitals. All right, so that means a lot of money, right, with medication, etc., at the hospitals. What else? If children are sick, what do? They don't go to school. If they don't go to school, they don't pass. And if they don't pass, they're not going to get a job. All right, and all of this is going to have a negative effect on the economy. All right, so if people are sick, they can't work. So that's the whole concept that you're looking at. If they can't work, they can't make money. If they don't have jobs, they're poor. They might need reliance on other members of the family. And those family members, right, that puts the pressure, etc. on them. Okay, guys, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.